Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is going to be a special experiment what we're doing because we're calling someone in live from the US, Rebecca Roth, who is working at NASA. There you go. You were there already. I can see you at least on my screen down here. So it's working. I'm super excited. I mentioned this earlier. This is going to be live streamed all around the world. So also special hi to all you guys watching via the Berlin Photo Week app that you can download for free on the App Store and the berlinphotoweek.com website. Great to have you, and let's embark on this journey together. Rebecca, I said this earlier when I talked about the program, you have the coolest job description in the world. So I'm reading this out here, sharing images from the universe to the public. This is what you're doing basically, and I'm so grateful. It's early for you in the morning, so thanks for joining. And we really hope to have you here next year, in the next couple of years, in person. Hopefully that's possible. And trust me, this is worth your time. Rebecca, warm welcome, and over to you.
Thanks, everybody. And I think it would have been a little bit more fun to be there in person, but instead I'm coming to you live from a cabin in the woods in West Virginia. I'm on vacation, and so we're going to do our best to have this presentation look good for you. So let's just get started here. So let's see here. So if we want to go to our first slide and just play that video real quick, this will give you an idea of the type of work that NASA is up to these days. I don't know if you have the sound for that.
Achieved the earth-shaking,
There we go.
the breathtaking, the groundbreaking. Have left a mark in the heavens. Our successes build one upon another and amplify what is possible. The dawn of Orion. It's time we take the next great leap. We're building the next chapter of American exploration, returning to the moon to stay, so we can go beyond to Mars, to expand what's possible and further our understanding. The architecture for these missions is already taking shape. We will go with new systems, bold designs, and a sustainable mission. You can hear it, taste it, touch it. We are going. We are training, testing, pressing our pioneering spirit into every component, defining our resolve with every line of code, and securing our success with every welcomed partnership. This is not hypothetical. This is not about flags and footprints. This is about sustainable science and feeding forward the advance of the human spirit. Because we are the pioneers, the star sailors, the thinkers, the visionaries, the doers. And because we stand on the shoulders of giants to go farther than humanity has ever been, we will add our names to the rolls of the greatest adventurers in history. Every day, every mission, we advance this calling. We are NASA. And after 60 years, we're just getting started.
For some reason I'm not.
I can talk. Rebecca, we can see you, and the video was amazing. I got goosebumps over here, and I I'll take the microphone. Rebecca, we can hear you,
Okay,
can see you. We can see your slides. The video was amazing. Good. I got goosebumps over here. And the slides are up and you can continue.
Okay, good. So I just had to sort of take over and do it from my phone. So we were sort of slightly worried. So I'm going to the next slide. So I guess I can't see. So it's going to be a little bit hard because I can only see myself and not the slide. But just real quickly about myself. So I've been at NASA for about 12 years, and my background was working as a photojournalist and a photo editor in Washington, D.C. And next slide shows a little bit of my work. Every once in a while, I get out of the office and go shoot like a rocket launch, or I went to Chile to photograph a total solar eclipse. So I didn't have a background in space or anything like that when I started at NASA 12 years ago. So the next slide shows, just to give you guys an idea about NASA, we have about 10 field centers across the United States. And you know what? I'm going to just turn off my hotspot, and that might make things better here. So this map shows all the field centers across the United States. You might have heard of some, Houston, we have a problem, and that's the Johnson Space Center, and the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where a lot of our launches happen. You can go to the next slide. This next slide shows Goddard Space Flight Center, and that's where I work. And it's really it's a unique center out of all of the NASA centers. We build spacecraft there, and it's one of the largest collection of Earth scientists of anywhere in the world. We have a lot of scientists.
Rebecca,
and
can you 1 second? So a quick shout out to the regie. We are one slide ahead. Actually.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So,
okay. Now I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Rebecca was talking about the previous slide, and now Rebecca, what we can see now is shooting for the stars, visually exploring space.
All right. So yeah, and so sorry about this, guys. I'm doing my best. So so I'm just going to walk through, the 3 of the main areas of how NASA shares space with the public. And so going to the next slide, of course, our satellites. There we go. And in that top left is probably one of the most well-known ones, and that's the Hubble Space Telescope. And then let's see, going to the next slide. This is if you want to play this one, this is a good example. What it shows is a number of the Earth satellites that the fleet of observing satellites that cover Earth. And it's many of these satellites that give us information related to weather. The next slide is probably, I don't know, one of NASA's most recognizable images. You have, this is called the Blue Marble. This was created in 2002. And it was created when scientists and visualizers worked together and stitched together observations of the Earth to create this image. If folks remember back when the iPhone first came out, this was the image that was on the iPhone, still one of NASA's most well-known images. The next image was an image that we updated the blue marble to the black marble, and this shows Earth at night, which is pretty cool. Going to the next image, I have, a category of images that a lot of people see, and that's, weather from space, different types of things. These show various volcano explosions from, not only from our satellites, but from the International Space Station. The next image is a hurricane in Japan. And going to the next slide, this will play, right. So this is an animation, composite of images that shows an iceberg breaking away. Oops, I see myself twice. Okay, so, wow. Why am I in there twice? Anyway, so So of course, climate is a really big thing that NASA is tracking. And I did have a slide in here, but unfortunately it didn't update, but it shows images of a river through Germany. I know you guys have been dealing with some extremes yourselves. So if we want to go on to the next image, we have, this is fires burning in Bolivia. And while all of these images of Earth, you can go to the next slide, help scientists better understand, really, in my opinion, the most important planet that we study. But sometimes these satellites just show us things that are, science is art. I mean, we just capture images of the Earth in a way that we've never seen before. And so going to the next slide, let's see, do you guys have this one? I don't know, is that playing?
Yes.
Yeah. So this shows a satellite called LRO. And unfortunately, I think the next slide wasn't playing, but you can see below, LRO is the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. And it's been in space for about the past 10 years and has been mapping the moon. For those of you who might follow some of NASA's work and what we're working on, and is going back to the moon, and that program is called Artemis. And while deciding where to go is a really important aspect of the mission. And so they're using data from LRO to allow scientists and the engineers, we need to pick a spot that will work for, to make sure that we have enough light, that we're not into shadow for too long. But we also want to pick a place where the scientists feel like we can really get a lot of information. And a satellite like LRO is really helping us get our astronauts there safely. You can go to the next slide. This is another amazing mission that started sending back images about 10 years ago. This is the Solar Dynamics Observatory. And this is a prominent eruption on the sun. The SDO sends back 1.5 terabytes of data of the sun each year. If you go to the next slide, this will give you a little bit, give you some insights into how massive and how powerful our sun really is. The next slide shows, okay, so we'll go to the next one. All right, so moving on to, this is probably a pretty familiar image to some of you who know the Hubble Space Telescope. This is the Pillar of Creations. The next slide is let's see, will that play for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. So this is Hubble's ultra deep field. It's the most comprehensive image ever assembled of our universe. Images like these help astronomers understand where the stars are formed and how galaxies like our own have grown in size over periods of billions of years. This Hubble Deep Field image from 2014 contains something like 10,000 galaxies. So it's a composite of exposures taking from 2003 to 2012. And the next slide, let's see, what do we have here? This is a comet. So usually Hubble is, really peering deeper into space, but this is a comet that came kind of close to Earth, and Hubble was able to see it. The next slide. Yeah, this is, I think, another pretty amazing image from Hubble. This one is a visualization taken from data from the Hubble Space Telescope. Next slide. Oh, okay. You can play that. Cool. So in this case, the visualizers take data from the telescope, and they're able to create visualizations like these. The next slide. So I added this. This is a mission that ended in 2017. You can go to the next slide. But it was a mission called Cassini. And Cassini arrived at Saturn in 2004. And this is an image that shows that massive storm that swirls at the south pole of Saturn. If you go to the next image, I don't know if you can see it. Probably not. I know I can't on my phone, but if you look closely, you can see this is an amazing, beautiful image of Cassini. I mean, and there's a little white dot in there, and that would be Earth seen through Saturn's rings. The reason I chose to show some images from this mission, like I said, it you can go to the next slide. The mission ended in 2017, and what they did is they literally crashed. It ran out of fuel, and it just crashed into the atmosphere. But this is an amazing image of some of the moons, Saturn's moons, and the rings. The next image shows some amazing details from Jupiter. NASA's Juno mission is looking at one of the larger gas planets, Juno. And if you go online, NASA has set up this website where anybody can download. Well, this is true for most of our images, but you can download the raw files from the Juno mission and sort of color them yourselves and manipulate them. It's kind of cool if you want to check that out. But the next image shows, one of the things famous about Jupiter is its red spot. It's kind of fun when NASA puts these images out to help put things in perspective and how large Jupiter really is. The next image is just another sort of beauty shot from Juno. The next slide is, I had this really, so this is from NASA's New Horizon mission. This image was from 2015. Prior to NASA's New Horizons mission, we didn't really have a clear image at all of what Pluto looked like. I mean, it was just, it was so far away that we didn't have a very great detail. And this image, it took New Horizons 10 years to get to Pluto, and it snapped this image of a Pluto at about 8,000 miles when it's about 8,000 miles away from Pluto. The next image I kind of like, and so what happened was, so Pluto snapped the image that I just showed you and kept going, and then, went past Pluto and turned its camera around and got this shot showing the planet, and where it was backlit by our sun. So there's just the next slide. There's just so many amazing images and so many amazing missions. It's hard to choose, but the next group of that I'm going to talk about is NASA's photographers. The next slide. And one small group that we don't talk about a lot is the scientists in the field. Every once in a while, we'll have a scientist who will email us and send us like an amazing image. The next slide. Sometimes they're in very remote places. This is in Antarctica for a balloon mission where they can do smaller missions where they might connect something to go up into the atmosphere. Next slide. But really, NASA has some really amazing photographers. These next few images are by a photographer, a NASA photographer. His name is Chris Gunn, and he's been documenting NASA building Hubble's successor, the James Webb Space Telescope. If you pay attention over the next couple of months, it sounds like we're going to be set to launch the James Webb Space Telescope sometime this fall. But these are some images, next slide, that photographer Chris Gunn captured of the telescope being built at Goddard Space Flight Center. And that's where I work. The next slide is one of my favorites. It just shows you the size of this thing and its golden mirrors that will be reflecting back some of the earliest images we've ever seen of the universe. The next image shows the telescope being put into what's called a thermal vacuum testing chamber. And so when we build these telescopes, not only do the telescopes have to be able to record these images and data, but they also have to be able to survive, the incredible shaking and everything that goes on, when it's in a rocket going up to space. And then it has to be able to withstand the cold of space and the heat of the sun. And so our NASA photographers, work in the clean rooms and document all of this. The next image, the next group of images that I'm going to show you are by NASA photographer Bill Ingalls. He works for NASA headquarters, and this is a Suza rocket taking off for the International Space Station from Kazakhstan. The next image is one of my favorites from Bill. So, prior when NASA had the space shuttle, that is how we took astronauts to the International Space Station. But since we retired them, we've been using these Soya capsules, and the astronauts get into these and they come down to Earth. It's kind of crazy, but we're working with SpaceX to come up with a new way to get to the space station. But I think that's a beautiful image. The next image, of course, NASA oftentimes has a lot to celebrate, like when you land on Mars. The next image is just, I guess when you shoot rocket launches a couple times a year, you have to come up with new ways of showing them. And this is an infrared image that Bill Ingalls shot. The next image, this was taken at the Wallops flight facility, which is part of Goddard. And I don't know if you can see, but if you look to the left at about 11 o'clock, there's a frog there. And we have what's called, we have cameras that are set in housings that can photograph the rocket launches, and one of them captured this frog that got a little bit too close. And then the next image just shows another night launch, which is pretty cool. And the next image is actually a sounding rocket image that was this mission. I heard about it. This was in Alaska, and they were sounding rockets are smaller rockets, and they don't go very high into the atmosphere. But in this case, they were going to be shooting this sounding rocket into Auroras. And I said to them, please, like, whatever you do, make sure you guys send a photographer and get an image of that. And it's really fun when NASA starts a new image and we have like these incredible images, and we're able to, share them with the public. The next set of images, going to the next slide, is, of course, I don't know. It's hard to say your favorite, but what's more classic than the Apollo images? The next slide. This is an image that NASA calls Earthrise, and it was shot in December in 1968 from the Apollo 8 crew. And Bill Anders was one of the NASA astronauts. And this is one of my favorite quotes from the Apollo mission. And it says, "We came all the way to explore the moon. And the most important thing is that we discovered the Earth." And it really was the first time that, the world was able to really see itself from space. The next slide. Here's, there's just so many amazing images still that I feel, next slide, are really timeless. And we're all looking forward. The next slide. This is the lunar module taken by Neil Armstrong. I mean, talk about a selfie. There he is in the foreground. The next slide. And so now we have, now we have the astronauts on the International Space Station. And going to the next slide, a number of years ago, they built, the International Space Station was built over a number of years, and they kept adding different sections to it. And this is called the observation module, the copula. And they created it so that the astronauts would have these windows where they could, shoot still images and videos of Earth. Going to the next slide. This is kind of a fun one. So I mentioned the Sousa rockets that take the astronauts to the International Space Station. And this is an image of a rocket launch. So this rocket was on its way to the International Space Station, and this image was shot from the space station, which is pretty cool. The next image, these are just a few, like really cool images. This is auroras, over the Earth. The next image from the space station, this shows the Milky Way. And the next image is showing a sunrise. And since the space station is constantly, going around Earth, the astronauts see 16 sunrises and sunsets each day. So they're seeing a lot. So we're closing in here on the end. I hope we're doing okay on time. I have two quick videos to show. The first one, so you can go to the next slide. And so this particular area is kind of interesting. So, we have animations, and if you want to go to the next slide, and this one has sound. So this is a clip over the play. Yeah, that's some cool stuff. And so that's from NASA's Conceptual Image Lab that's located at Goddard. And the artists from the CI labs, that's what we call it, work with the astronomers and the scientists and the engineers to bring, theories and design concepts to life. And, they can be very time consuming because they have to be scientifically accurate, and also, really compelling visually, but they really help us tell some of the stories that we're not able to tell otherwise. The next slide is going to show you a video clip from NASA's Scientific Visualization Studio. And similar to the animations, these are visualizations. And so these are created from taken from data from the satellites, and so these are unlike an artist's conception, these are based on information. So were you able to play that last clip?
It's coming.
Oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow, isn't that pretty?
Cool. So next slide. So so like I said, I work at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, and so while it's pretty easy to find most of NASA's accounts across social media at NASA, many of our accounts are NASA Goddard. And the next slide is just, I wanted to say thank you, and hopefully, hopefully this everything looked okay, and that there weren't too many technical difficulties on your end. But it was a pleasure to be with you today.
Rebecca, this was amazing. Wow. Thank you so much. And by the way, if you can still hear me, I just sent you an email with begging you to take me on as a summer intern next year. But like, that's a different story. Thank you. Rebecca, go back to your vacation, and thanks for interrupting that. It was enlightening and how beautiful. And I think we all agree that added an amazing perspective, not only to the day, but yeah, we'll follow all your channels, and hopefully we can invite you to come to Berlin sooner than we all think. Have a great day, and thank you, Rebecca Roth from NASA.
All right, thank you. Thanks, guys.